Order, order. May I remind all honourable and right honourable members that Mr Speaker has imposed a 15-minute time limit on backbench contributions. Mr Peter Hain.
Madam Deputy Speaker, could I say how delighted I am to see you as a great Welsh woman presiding over this debate, and could I express my gratitude to my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, for what he said about me. I congratulate him on getting the job, despite the surreal, nightmarish circumstances in which I left it. I couldn't think of anybody I'd more like to see holding the post. I replaced him in Wales and in Northern Ireland, and now he's replaced me in Wales. It's becoming almost politically incestuous, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could I also say how grateful I am to the honourable member for Cheshire and Amersham. She's always shown me great decency in all the jobs we've worked on together. Madam Deputy Speaker, over the last 11 years, the Welsh economy has been transformed because of the energy, the innovation and the dynamism of Welsh businesses, the skill and hard work of Welsh women and men, combined with unprecedented annual rises in public investment and economic stability ensured by our government. Economically and culturally, Wales has enjoyed a renaissance from the grim decades of mass unemployment and business failure. We should all celebrate that, because together, our Labour governments in Westminster and Cardiff, business and all Welsh employees, we have made it possible for Wales to walk tall with a spring in our step. However, we're still not anything like where we should be to compete with the competition from Eastern and Central Europe, let alone the emerging Asian economies, and especially our new global economic partners and the superpowers of the future, China and India, countries with over 2 billion people producing 5 million new university graduates a year, 2/3 of them in science and technology and ICT. And the central challenge we face is to transform the Welsh economy by building a much bigger private sector. Unless we do that, we will not have the ability to achieve the world-class success Wales is capable of and deserves. And if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've set these ideas and the argument out in more detail on my own website, peterhain.org, and it'll be published as an internet pamphlet on wales2020.com, a website. Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the elements essential to Wales' success to date has been the huge real terms rises in public investment, the Welsh budget increasing to almost 16 billion by 2011, some 130% higher in cash terms than in 1997. But that era is now coming to an end. Britain has never had a period of such long, consistent, steeply rising public spending. It cannot continue without unbalancing the economy, causing a return to the instability, high inflation and high interest rates we inherited from the Conservatives and which plagued all British governments for a generation or more. That is why the next comprehensive spending review period, 2008 to 11, will still see real terms increases in public investment, but at a lower rate. And this poses challenges to the Welsh Assembly government, because its entire life has so far been spent under the umbrella of unparalleled real terms budget increases. From now on, the kind of efficiency measures and reforms that Finance Minister Andrew Davis is rightly insisting upon will be needed to reduce inefficiency and bureaucracy and release funds to significantly improve frontline services. Much tougher choices over priorities will also be necessary. Those who claim that the government's public spending programme has inhibited the growth of the private sector are wrong. Huge public investment in private construction, for example, has stimulated it, and 5 times more Welsh private sector jobs have been created in the past 11 years than in the public sector. There are many other sectors where Welsh businesses have benefited and created Welsh jobs by providing services or selling products to the Welsh public sector on the back of rising spending since 1997. And this poses a stark contrast with the economic instability and public spending cuts during 1979-97, when huge numbers of Welsh businesses went bankrupt and unemployment soared. However, according to the House of Commons Library, estimates show public spending in Wales is equivalent to 59% of GDP. This is higher than any other part of the United Kingdom, except Northern Ireland at 64%, but similar to that of the North East of England. The equivalent estimate for Scotland is about 50%, and the UK average is about 44%. Wales's ratio of public spending to GDP is broadly similar to, or perhaps slightly higher than, the highest ratio among OECD countries. In Wales, 23.7% of employers are in the public sector, compared with the UK average of 20.2%. This is again very similar to the North East, but lower than Northern Ireland at 29.1%. All other areas of the UK have lower shares of public sector employment. High public spending, of course, is partly to correct the legacy of historically high levels of relative deprivation, of sparsity, of geographic remoteness, and of the ill health that itself is a legacy of Wales's industrial heritage, especially mining. Moreover, our government has rightly been deliberately moving public jobs from the overheated southeast to Wales. So the argument I make is emphatically not for cuts in public spending, so beloved of the right, still less that the public sector in Wales is too big. Indeed, I'm arguing the exact opposite. The real issue is that the private sector is too small. If both Welsh living standards and the economic competitiveness which underpins our prosperity is to grow as we all want, the private sector needs to grow very significantly and at a relatively much faster rate. To achieve at least equilibrium with the rest of the UK and the OECD countries, Wales must move forwards towards a private sector at around 55% of Welsh GDP. And to achieve this, in the next 15 to 20 years, we will need year-on-year growth at around 1% faster than the UK average. No mean feat. But it's no good, as the right insists, simply leaving this task of catch-up to market forces in the private sector. These have a critical role to play, of course, but so does government in London and in Cardiff, by targeting public investment not only on the soft side of care and services, but also on the much sharper side of public spending: skills, infrastructure, technology, research, and entrepreneurialism. 150 years ago, at the height of the Industrial Revolution, Wales had in Merthyr Tydfil what was considered to be the most technologically advanced town on the planet, with the most productive ironworks in the world and the development of the first rail engine. We need new Merthyrs for this century, leading the way in the new technologies of the future. Although we need higher labour productivity, Wales cannot and should not try to compete on cheaper labour costs, with China and India, for example, paying manufacturing workers 60p an hour. As Rhodri Morgan has so eloquently said, and as the Secretary of State repeated, the Wales of the future will be a small but clever country, with private sector growth in the right areas and raised levels of educational attainment, skills and innovation to add value. At present, although Welsh spending on R&D is rising, it remains too low, and this must be addressed urgently, with ever closer partnership between and ever more targeted spending by governments at Westminster and Cardiff, our universities, our colleges and Welsh businesses. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, our vision is for a Wales that is a centre where companies can innovate. It can innovate in partnership with our educational institutions, and I identify 7 immediate priorities: securing graduate retention, developing technical skills and inspiring entrepreneurship from school upwards, tough public spending decisions with a moratorium on handouts and a switch to supporting greater competitiveness, competing in the high added value areas like financial services, electronics, nanotechnology, biosciences, molecular mechanics and ICT, with many more startups and high-tech businesses, supporting vital new energies including renewables and biofuels, supporting our economy with a welfare system which gets people off benefit and into work, providing our workforce with the skills they need to progress in employment, ensuring we have a political, economic and social culture in Wales which is truly internationalist, and finally, smarter government, local and national, with a more dynamic Welsh public service. Madam Deputy Speaker, universities need to be at the heart of our economic growth. And this can be done as Singapore, a country roughly the same size as Wales, has demonstrated. On a per capita income basis, it is now one of the top 20 countries in the world. Our universities are already making a significant contribution to business and substantial increases in the government's science and innovation budgets are enabling them to improve this still further, as I've seen myself, for example, during visits to Cardiff, Swansea and Bangor universities. And I hope, no, I won't give way to the Honourable Member. I'll give way to members on both sides of the House, Madam Deputy Speaker, who treated me with decency over the last few weeks. I've also visited, of course, Newey in Wrexham, and I look forward to it getting its university status. Madam Deputy Speaker, the emergence of techniums throughout Wales is hugely important in exploiting the talents of Welsh graduates to start up new companies, providing excellence for the knowledge economy that is our future, with new world-class employment opportunities for young, skilled people, whether from Wales or elsewhere, especially in growing and important areas like financial services, nanotechnology, biosciences, and ICT. By inspiring our young people, we can add to the natural desire to succeed that is already there. Government needs to prioritise funding to enable our universities, colleges and schools to provide much better foundations and opportunities for these potential businessmen and women of tomorrow to be able to go on to realise their aspirations. Wales has a... Of course I will.
I thank my friend for giving way. Can I ask him, as part of the equation where he's focusing on, would he acknowledge that European convergence funding has been extremely important and has given tremendous opportunities in job creation and to help the economy, a part which he played a great part in when he was Minister in the Welsh office in the earlier days, when we managed to get economy and Denbighshire on the Objective 1 map, something that we'd failed previously.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and she was one of those who most articulately persuaded me to extend the boundaries when I was in the old Welsh office. Madam Deputy Speaker, Wales is an abundance of natural resources with a coastline and landscape that lends itself to a variety of offshore and onshore wind and other renewable energy developments, wave and tidal. The government is moving forward with a feasibility study into the potential for a barrage across the Severn Estuary, which would generate fully 5% of UK electricity needs, the biggest renewable energy project by some distance on our island, creating also tens of thousands of jobs, first in construction and then permanently. I'll give away to the Honourable Member and then to my Honourable.
I'm grateful to the Right Honourable Member, and may I praise his time in the Welsh office. In terms of wind power, there is a meeting in Trefeglwys, one of my local communities, about wind power tomorrow evening. Would you agree that it's very important that it's very important that the local considerations are taken into account, and that would you agree with me, therefore, that if there is a very strong feeling for or against a wind construction in a local community, that should be taken into account in the planning process? And in the past, on occasion, it hasn't been my view, certainly, that community considerations have been taken into account in that way.
Well, obviously, local wishes need to be listened to, but what we don't want is local NIMBYism paralysing renewable energy developments. Madam Deputy Speaker, there's also the potential... Sorry. Yes, indeed.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome his remarks about the Severn tidal barrage. But is he aware that should the government decide after its 2-year feasibility study to proceed, it will almost certainly come to my constituency in the Vale of Glamorgan, and coupled with a recent announcement on the Defence Training Academy, we could acquire £36 billion investment in the Vale of Glamorgan.
All due to the MP, indeed, and partly due to his excellent work, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, there's also the potential for growth in Welsh coal, in the Welsh coal industry, but this will not and should not happen unless Welsh coal becomes green coal, and governments in both Westminster and Cardiff should work together, developing innovative carbon capture and storage procedures, together with making sure that we have clean coal power stations and realising the enormous benefits that exist for exporting to countries like India and China if we do. But although the new technologies and backup services are sources of potentially huge numbers of Welsh jobs, new Welsh jobs, there are currently some 50,000 job vacancies across Wales because we do not have enough people with the right skills or being given the right support to fill these vacancies. So we need to move tens of thousands more people off benefits and into work. Tailoring support to their needs, opportunities should be maximised by both Job Centre Plus in Wales and the Welsh Assembly Government to match European convergence funding and create many more new skills and job preparation schemes in West Wales and the valleys. Despite coming down these past few years, the level of economic inactivity is still far too high in Wales, reflecting the dismal heritage of the 1980s and 1990s, when numbers on incapacity benefits more than trebled and mass unemployment was a curse. And when I say that the majority of people on incapacity benefit could work and should work, this is not an attack on them. It's an attack on an outdated system that deprives them of the opportunity to share in the rewards of work that go far beyond financial independence, important as that is, because work is inherently good for people of all ages, good for their health, good for families, and good for communities. Madam Deputy Speaker, clearly government at all levels will have to raise its game. Decisions need to be taken more quickly, and the government's planned streamlining of planning for essential infrastructure and energy projects is vital to overcome endemic NIMBYism. This is certainly not about riding roughshod over local views. It is about grasping the nettle that strategic policies need to be implemented much more quickly if Wales is not to fall further behind. Business also needs much smarter local government, modelled, I believe, on Neath Port Talbot Council's record of excellence for quick decisions implemented speedily. The culture of cautious conservatism that is so rife in Welsh public services, from the civil service to local councils, needs radical reform if we're to build a truly competitive economy. As I know from working with them, including in the Wales office, there are many fine Welsh public servants, but for Wales to succeed, our risk-averse, can't-do culture must be replaced by a dynamic can-do culture. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, Wales continues to improve, but we can't stand still. The alternative is to fall back. We must think and act globally, not merely nationally. We must be a small country with a big global vision. Using all our institutions and talents, we must make the most of new skills, new technologies, and new opportunities. We must reprioritise our public spending to prioritise sharp rather than soft services, favouring skills, technological innovation and business support rather than free schemes. And we must rapidly grow the private sector so that it overtakes in size the public sector and creates a vibrant, more balanced economy with an even brighter, stronger future for Wales, reaching up to be genuinely world-class.
Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a great pleasure to be able to debate Welsh issues in this chamber. It's an opportunity that we too rarely have. And can I also say it's a great pleasure to follow on from the Right Honourable gentleman who represents Neath and put on record my appreciation of the help he gave and the cooperation he gave to me when he was in office. Today he's demonstrated his great knowledge of the Welsh scene and the opportunities that make themselves available to Wales and to Welsh people, but also to the impediments to those developments. And he's very realistic in his